Right, so supposed to go back downtown to go back to work, and then next thing I know, he's like, "No, we got to book you to emergency surgery."
On the spot, he said this
Yeah,
right
yeah, he's
away.
like, "Yeah, you got to book a
Wow.
surgery." He's very definitive. He walks me over to the booking clerk. Right, my face is like, like blank. She's like, "What are you doing in a couple weeks?" And I'm just like, "Well, I don't know. Like, I was gonna do
Yeah.
this, and this, but all of that,
You tell
yeah,
me.
extremely insignificant now." She's trying to schedule me in. I book a date. One part of the story that I reflect on a lot is that up until this point, I actually didn't tell my fiance about these appointments. I was in the mindset of, hey, don't share with her until you know for sure. There's no point worrying her, right? It's part of this like Asian upbringing I think we have as well. Sometimes it's like, don't burden others.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Candidly with me, your host, cancer survivor, and your thrivership hype woman, Carolyn Van. We are back. So, let's talk about how 2026 has been. How has the start been on your end? Full disclosure, I've been sick for a good chunk of this year, which has affected my voice. It hasn't been the most get behind the mic ready, and as you might be able to hear, I'm still a bit stuffed up. Let's see if I can get through this without a cough or a sniffle. No promises though. Okay, so through the years of working through my diagnosis, treatment, and survivorship, one of the many things I had noticed in the rooms I was in was that there were far more femme identifying folks than not. I'm talking waiting rooms, group therapy sessions, community groups. Through my work in research, I knew that what I was observing did not accurately reflect what was actually going on, specifically who cancer was affecting. We know that cancer does not discriminate against men. In fact, cancer incidence is slightly higher in males than females, something we've historically seen in Canadian statistics. I also just have general curiosities and some concerns, if I were to be honest, about some of the men in my life. When it comes to being well and fit, there's so much focus on what this looks like on the outside. While many of us wouldn't admit this out loud, we often attach value and success to what's happening along the surface. Even depth itself can be watered down, is expressed in shortcuts, and can kind of be performative. But here's the thing, especially some of us who have experienced and thrived through very difficult life things, like cancer, we are tuned into the fact that the insides, the depth of our inner wirings, that is where it's at. And this certainly is something that me and our guests aligns on. I am so happy that you get to meet Chris Ho, introduced by a mutual friend of ours. Thanks, Jake. Chris's life was significantly affected by a cancer that is most common amongst young men, testicular cancer. In this hangout, you'll hear how Chris lost both of his testicles, how cancer catalyzed a significant shift in his relationship with his dad, what manhood and masculinity means to him now, and how raising two kiddos through their boyhood looks like. And of course, we address some of your amazing questions. Enjoy this hangout with Chris Ho.
Hey, Carolyn.
Hey Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
How's your day been today so
Yeah,
far?
it's good. Just started, right? So I'm excited for this conversation, and it's sunny in Vancouver, so it's a really good day. So
Which is rare.
yeah, it can get more cloudy and rainy, more so, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that cold compared to where you're at.
When's the last time you were in Toronto?
Oh, long time. I think for like a
Yeah.
wedding in like 2011. I came to do some work a couple years ago.
So it's been some time since your diagnosis, right? And I know that it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
come back in different ways. So maybe start from sharing when it all went down.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, happy to. Born and raised in Vancouver, pretty typical life. Went to school here, lived in Toronto for a few years, and then started like I guess my early working years in Vancouver, a young professional life. And up until that point, health was fine. I didn't have a family doctor, which is very common for men, right? It wasn't until I got with my now wife, when we were dating in about 2010. As most cases, women are very proactive with health and so forth. But up until like 2010, yeah, no health issues. Went to see a doctor here and there. So yeah, life was good. We were dating. We got engaged in 2012.
Remind me how old you were.
At that point, oh, you're gonna make me do the math now. I think it was like early 30s. I've been almost 31, 32 years old. Yeah, I proposed to her in 2013. We were engaged June of that year, and that's kind of when it all started. We were living a regular young professional life. I was working in software sales. She was owning her own dog daycare business. Routine shower one day in the fall, and then just felt one of my testicles and felt a little lump on there.
Yeah.
Very, very small, very little nub. I was like, that's interesting, right? A couple days pass, and then you start to think about things and so forth. At the time, I had a family doctor because of those conversations I had with my girlfriend slash fiance at the time. So I had an appointment with my doctor. He did a quick exam.
Yeah.
And then I still remember he was like, "Oh, it's probably just a cyst. I see these all the time. It's probably a cyst, but I'll book a ultrasound, and then we'll go from there." I was like, "Okay." Still not thinking too much of it, doing a little bit of Dr. Google, right? But not letting things go too much because he was so confident, the doctor. I was like, okay.
He did book you an ultrasound though. It was like it was just like a just in case, right?
Yeah,
Like,
just in
yeah.
case. Well, in retrospect, I think he knew. But in that moment, he was just like, let's just book an ultrasound. Right? So did the ultrasound, and then of course, ultrasound technicians, they don't tell you anything, right? They're not supposed to. Get a phone call from my family doctor and says, hey, we got the results. Not really sure yet, but like I've now referred you to a urologist surgeon. So close by VGH or Vancouver General Hospital, right? For additional kind of testing or whatever. Went there. Right now, I'm starting to creep some suspicion now, right? So
Are you thinking cancer?
yeah, I'm thinking testicular cancer, right? Yeah, yeah. I'm starting to think about it, but I'm still not really thinking about it because I'm so focused on I was so hung up on my family doctor saying it was just a cyst, right? I was like,
Right.
and up until this point, you have to remember, I've had really not much exposure to like the medical system and appointments. Right?
Yeah.
I was kind of going in, half blind kind of thing, with ignorance, right? And showed up to Dr. So's office, who's a urologist surgeon. He did a quick exam, like in like 20 seconds. He was like, oh yeah, that's cancer, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and even though I did all this research, and then part of me knew that this could happen, I was shocked. Right? He actually had to catch me because I fell to the ground almost, and he was shocked that I was shocked because probably for him, he sees this all the time, right? He probably sees this a couple times a day, right? But for people like me, it's like the very first time a medical professional says those words out loud, right? Next thing I knew, he's like, we got to book your surgery. I had just taken like time off work, like to go to this appointment. I was supposed to go back downtown to go back to work. And then next thing I know, he's like, no, you got to sit with my scheduling clerk. We got to book you to emergency surgery. So
Like on the spot, he said this. Like
yeah,
right away.
he's like, yeah, you got to book a surgery, like as soon as possible. He's very definitive. He walks me over to the booking clerk. My face is like, like blank. She's like, what are you doing in a couple weeks? And I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like I was going to do this, and this, but all of that.
You tell me,
all
right?
that seems extremely insignificant now. So she's trying to schedule me in. I book a date, and so forth. And then, I schedule that date, right? One part of the story that I reflect on a lot is that up until this point, I actually didn't tell my fiance about these appointments that I've had, right? I was in the mindset of, hey, don't share with her until you know for sure. There's no point worrying her, right? It's part of this like Asian upbringing I think we have as well. Sometimes it's like, don't burden others until, you find out kind of thing.
Even the first appointment with your family doctor.
Yeah, yeah. Even the first appointment, even the ultrasound, right? It was like,
And when you are delivered the news,
yeah.
Are you texting her? Are you telling her?
So I haven't told her yet. So yeah. So up until this point, I scheduled the appointment. I call my work, and I'm like, I'm not coming back to work today.
Yeah.
And I remember like VGH is like on the other side of downtown, and I remember like just walking home over the bridge that afternoon, right? Just like, with all the thoughts you can imagine, right? Like, am I gonna die?
Yeah, I've been there.
Work? Yeah, right. What do I tell my fiance? What about my family? All these things that you were planning for and thinking about, just like insignificant in like an instant, right? You're just like insignificant at the same time you're worrying as well.
I mean, you don't have answers to any of these questions. These questions that are coming your way have no answers to them.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And then like at that moment, maybe they were giving me answers, but I was not listening. I wasn't in a place to hear any of that stuff, right? So
No.
yeah, so I go home that night, and then that night I share the news with my wife, right? And she's obviously crushed by the news, and more crushed that I didn't bring her along on the journey of all those things there, right? One of my big lessons or reflections I've had in that experience was you can't really shield people from bad news. People are gonna process their own way and so forth. So
Yeah.
so that night I told her I was having a surgery. It was like in the next couple of weeks. So we kind of went through all those emotions. But this is where the Asian upbringing still stays in place because I didn't tell my parents now. Because now I'm like, I'm going to do this surgery because I don't want to worry my parents now, right? So I go through this first surgery in October of 2013, get the testicle removed. Told my brother, he helped me along with my fiance get back home and recovered well. It's a day surgery, kind of sore and all that stuff, but it's fine. Then I get scheduled for a CT scan, right, to do a follow-up. And I've healed. I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. They do a CT scan and then they find a larger tumor about like 10 centimeters long attached to my right adrenal gland. So I'm back into Dr. So's office now. And now with my fiance, she's part of this, right? We're still kind of going through all these emotions. And then Dr. So is like, we found a bigger tumor. It's on your right adrenal gland. It looks pretty nasty. We don't know what it is. We suspect it's a spread from your testicular cancer. It needs to come out. And I still remember it's like, it's all tangled. So you're probably going to lose your right kidney as well. And you're going to probably lose parts of your liver as well. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. Two other organs. Awesome.
Two other organs. Yeah. And so it's Christmas of 2013. And, I asked the obvious question of like, what's the alternative? What if I keep it in there? It's like, if you keep it in there, it's like, you're going to die. You're going to die. That thing is quite big. Right. So it's, I was like, okay, well, great.
So it's coming out. It's coming out.
Okay. So that was the Christmas of 2013. Surgery gets scheduled for Valentine's a couple of months after, a month and a half after.
Lovely.
Yeah, great day. Great day, right? I brought my family now part of the journey. So I told my family.
Okay.
Right? My parents, they're going through their emotions and so forth. I had my surgery on Valentine's Day. The right adrenal gland comes out. I'll wake up and the first thing I asked them was like, did you keep my kidney? Did you keep my liver? And they're like, yes, we actually just took out the right adrenal gland and the tumor that was wrapped around that. I was like, great, right? It was a bigger surgery, as you can imagine. So I was in the hospital for a few days. They had to kind of crack me up. Ribs are actually kind of still not in the right place because they had to kind of position me in certain ways. But, it was a successful surgery. It was recovering. I was on leave for work for a few weeks. The follow-up medical report of that tumor a few weeks later came back and they said that, hey, good news, actually, that tumor that we took out, that tumor specifically was benign. So it was not spread, which was great news.
Huge relief.
Right? Because the way they described it was pretty bad and all that. So it's tough that had to go out, but at that time, you don't really know about these things, right? So
still the best decision,
still
right?
The best decision, for sure, given the circumstances and all that, right? And the information I knew at the time, right? So I recovered. Now I'm on some drugs like to kind of balance my hormones because I'm missing an adrenal gland, I'm missing a testicle, so my testosterone, my cortisol levels are all messed up. I joke though, I've always been kind of calm, and then it was calmer after because I was in software sales. And like, how come you're so calm? I was like, well, if you take an adrenal gland out, you don't get as stressed, right? You don't have to worry as much. So I highly recommend you take one out and
is that the hack? Is that the hack?
That's the hack, right? I know a guy, so if anyone's interested. But
funny.
Recovery was good. It was fine. I get married in 2015. It's amazing. Life is going well.
At this point, you're just taking oral medication.
Yeah, just oral medication. And even with one testicle, it was really no impact, really. So life was as normal as you can imagine, right? 2015 got married, and then 2016 is when my cancer journey diverts now, but to my dad now.
Right.
So I'm married with my wife. We're doing our thing. I get a bunch of missed calls from my dad one day. I'm like, this is suspicious, right? And then I call my brother. I'm like, Dad's trying to reach me. What's going on? He's just like, he's got some tough news to share. Call him back. Go over to his house.
So your brother knew.
Kind of knew something was going on, right? But didn't really tell me.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'll go to my dad's house. He's sitting downstairs in the living room. He's just staring into the wall and watching TV, and I kind of know that something he's going to share something that's not good. Just letting him have his space, right? He's a Chinese born in Vietnam, Asian culture, doesn't talk a lot, very quiet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can see him trembling a little bit, and this is the first time I've ever seen my dad cry, right? He's like 60-ish, 62.
Yeah.
And then he looks up and he's like, I have stage 4 lung cancer. And I've been getting radiation the last couple weeks, and I'm going to be doing chemotherapy pretty soon, right? And he's a lifetime, smoker, right? Which doesn't make it better or worse, but
No.
for him to share that news was tough for him because he obviously knew about my journey, and then him sharing that news, he was obviously very, very, very upset as well.
He had been doing radiation therapy,
Yeah.
right? I wonder why he decided to share with you at that point. Do you have any insight into that? What do you think?
Yeah,
What's your read on that?
I think my read was I think it presented himself first with like some shoulder pain. Then he got through a few appointments and then got the cancer diagnosis and then tried the radiation therapy, and then that was unsuccessful, or it was a work in progress. But I think he knew that the next step was chemo, and then there's going to be some impacts to him and chemo, so he wouldn't be able to hide it per se. He would need some help and support, right? So I think he felt at that point it was appropriate to share with my brother and I and my mom.
Yeah, because things might change for the family, right? In the next phase.
Yeah. I think he knew he was always going to tell us for sure, but I think he was waiting for the right time. And it wasn't that much
Okay.
time. It was maybe like 4 or 5 weeks from the time he found out to getting a couple of rounds of radiation and then sharing the news with me. So it was pretty quick. And that was about the fall of 2016. Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, when we experience people sharing, maybe later on or whenever they feel comfortable sharing,
Yeah.
because we have our own experiences. If anything, we understand, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't share immediately. It's not easy,
No.
right? So
No. Yeah.
yeah, we can't be upset about it, right?
We
Like,
cannot. And I think that's
yeah.
this whole journey, which continues, but like this whole journey is like taught me about like our own emotions and our own expectations, and then also other people's emotions and expectations, whether it be cancer or death and so forth. And everyone experiences it differently, everyone goes through it differently, and there's a tendency, I think, for humans to try to console, try to ask questions, to be supportive. And I think there's a fine line between supporting and also trying to satisfy our own curiosity or our own desire to know or to support or even to soothe ourselves, to be honest.
Address our own anxieties,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, this whole journey, like death is one of those things that we don't talk about enough in our world, and it's evident because it's very awkward when death happens, or when
And that's the thing, when it happens.
when it happens.
It's the thing that we are certain about.
Yeah.
It's the thing that we can guarantee.
Yeah.
Yet we don't prepare our children. We don't prepare ourselves.
Yeah.
It's often the first death. Not always, but often the first death that can be like a grandparent, and we might be in our like 20s, adulthood, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Or in some cases, when we are young adults and being diagnosed with cancer,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I've had a couple of friends that had kids that are 3 or 4 that went through cancer treatments, right?
Yeah.
That kind of shocks people because we're so ingrained in thinking that this is what life is going to look like. You're born, you get old, you die quietly in bed, nicely, right? After an extended
Yeah.
amount of years, right, and experiences. But the truth is, the moment we were born, we're actually heading towards death immediately.
Yeah.
Really, right? Every day we live, we're actually going towards death. We're dying, literally, right? So that's okay, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a reframe.
So your dad does he move forward with chemo?
Yeah, so he goes through the treatment. So that interesting, that night, I remember my wife at the time knew that there was some bad news, right? So my dad told me that evening. I go home, right? I'm processing my emotions. I show up home. I'm gonna tell the news to my wife. I tell my wife immediately as I go in. Yeah, my dad's got stage 4 and chemo. We embrace. We kind of share those emotions, and then immediately after that, she then shares with me that she's pregnant with her first
Wow.
son. Yeah.
What a day.
What,
What a
what a couple
day.
of hours.
Couple hours.
Yeah. She was starting to feel it, and that evening she took the pregnancy test, and she was debating whether to tell me or not in that moment. But I'm glad she did because it quickly shifted me. It was like life and death, like right in that instant, circle of life in that moment, right? And I was not grieving, but I was processing my emotions for my dad, but also celebrating newborn. So, and also immediately it was like, I can't wait to tell my dad to be motivated, right? To, go through what he was going to go through. My dad goes forward with treatment. I tell him the news about our upcoming. It was a surprise. So we didn't really know the gender at the time. So like, hey, Maggie's pregnant. Keep going through your chemo. You got extra motivation. He battled a good year and a half, through his treatment, except surgery, right? So radiation, chemo, got accepted to a new trial immunotherapy drug. Last minute was really hopeful, caught in pneumonia, so we thought we were going to lose him. My son, Caden, was born August 3rd, 2017. We got to meet his first grandson,
That's nice. Yeah.
which was amazing. Fast forward 2018, April, a few months after that, he got pneumonia again, and then ultimately he passed away fairly quickly after that, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
that was the second time I saw him cry, was when we were in the hospital and the doctor was telling me that it's not looking good. He's really got maybe a couple of days left. And then, I remember him coming up to me. It's like, what did the doctor say? And I had to tell him that there's no more drugs. There's no more things that we can do. Like, he says you have a couple of days, and then, seeing him break down again. It's tough, right?
That's tough.
Still gets me all the time. I have his picture over here, and still just keeps staring at me. But I tell people all the time. I think I had a gift with that because I had a known certainty or a high probability that these next few days, weeks, months were going to be his last. So I had opportunities to share, connect. I asked him about his life story. He was Chinese, born in Vietnam. And he had many stories of him being enlisted in the Vietnam War, how he had to escape 3 times to flee. First 2 times were unsuccessful. Got caught. The army caught him. Said, "Go back. You got to go back. You got to go serve your duty." Another time, he tried to take another flight up north in northern Vietnam. Got caught again. And the third time, off a bridge, jumped into the water, swam to a small boat. Small boat took him to a bigger boat, took him to like a Taiwanese freighter ship, paid off some people. He told me that during the trip there was a typhoon, and they had to like stay in the waters for a while. They started running out of food. People were dying on the freighter.
Yeah.
Right. And then finally arrives in Hong Kong with a few bucks. All of these stories like would have just died with him, right?
In those moments, did you specifically ask him to share, or did it just come out? You alluded to having an Asian background, alluding to the impact on our ability or inability to share, right? So how did your relationship with your dad go from like not talking, not really sharing, to him spilling this out to you?
It's a good question. So I've always been the talkative one in my family, right? So I've always been the outspoken one, the goofy one, always trying to inspire a conversation. It's just my nature. And he would share once in a while, but he would never be as forward. But during like his diagnosis in the year and a half, I would always ask him these questions. And then a lot of the times he would just like, no, I don't really want to talk about it. Or he wouldn't say much, right? I always asked him about the Vietnam War because I was fascinated, right?
Yeah.
And he just wouldn't say anything. And then and then one time specifically when he was getting his chemo, we went down to the cafeteria to get those terrible food that we had available.
Hospital food.
Hospital food. And then it was just quiet. And a lot of times we were just quiet, just being present with each other. And he would just start spewing stories out. And no prompt or anything like that. So it got me thinking that he was thinking about telling these. He wanted to tell these stories, I think.
Yeah.
And then just over the next few days and weeks, he kind of shared more and more and more, and I made sure to capture it all and write it down and share with his brothers and sisters, and then like our extended family. And a lot of them didn't know these things about him, right? All these stories
Yeah.
of him.
So interesting, whenever we're facing mortality, whether it's your father who was, not in good shape and was ultimately days away, even though at that point he didn't know yet, or situations and scenarios with you and I,
Yeah.
how that can change what we share with others, and how that can change what we face within ourselves, right? So wonderful to hear that your dad, I think it takes a level of courage, right, to be able to
Yes.
share that. I had moments with my dad in his final days as well where, he would share these words to me that I've never heard ever in my life. Even just
Yeah.
sharing, I love you so much, like verbally,
Yeah.
right? I'm the talker, right?
Yep.
My family knows that I'm the verbally communicative one,
Yeah.
right? So for him to do something that is uncomfortable to him, his love language is not through words, but
Yeah.
he knows, oh, this daughter, she expresses herself in this way.
Yeah.
So, he did the uncomfortable thing for him,
Yeah.
but needed to let his daughter know, just in case she didn't know, right? Just in
hmm
case there was any doubt,
Yeah.
how he felt about me,
Yeah.
right?
So wonderful.
To give us these gifts in their final moments,
Yeah.
to tuck away discomfort that they might have, to know that this might be it, and it's
Yeah.
not, and this is something for this future generation to gain from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank goodness you had those moments, because then you get to pass this on to your two sons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And going back to what you just shared, I think that is a good sign of courage, right? Because I think there's a tendency for us to always reflect on where we are right now and compare previous generations or previous decisions and so forth. And there was a lot of courage for people like your dad and my dad to even express even an ounce of emotion, right? Because you can imagine their relationship with their fathers before or their parents before, right? And the world that they were living in, right? So I always think about the duality of the worlds that they were in, from the old world and then now moving, when they immigrated to Canada, and just, this North American two boys and the way they talk, right? It's a lot, I'm sure, right? And to have that
Yeah.
courage for them to express even an ounce of that is a sign of courage for sure. Yeah.
I think it's important for us to remember that we are only the first generation, right? I don't know about you, but I know, for myself, I went through a phase where I was frustrated with my parents, right? And I was having this conversation with a few friends, actually, just talking about complexities and and beauty within the diaspora, right? That I'm finding that a lot of the first generation, so us, there's a group of us that are so expressive. It's almost as if we're making up for the fact that our parents could not.
Yeah.
There's so many amazing artists and
Yeah.
poets
Yeah.
and very expressive humans from our generation. Only one generation, from our parents,
Yeah.
where their focus was on survival.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They didn't have the opportunity to build these skills,
Yeah.
right? So it's so remarkable. I'm so proud of the first generations of
Me
us,
too.
where I can see us go there, because I know that in order to get to where we are, we've had to address a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Right?
sure. Yeah. And then so much has evolved from that, right? Just from that experience from our parents and then ours, right? And I think it's honoring both, which is really important, because there was frustration because we were caught in a different world, and we're faced with friction at home, and we see all this pressure from outside, and we're trying to make sense of everything else, right, in this world, right? And cancer and death also fall into that as well, right? Because
Yep.
how they dealt with death was very different, and cancer diagnosis, right, to now, right? There's a million things that you should be doing now in terms of health, right? Maybe too many
Right.
things, right? And that causes certain stresses as well, right?
So you have two sons now. It must be so interesting to experience such a gendered cancer, have your own understanding of manhood
Yeah.
evolve. Actually, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How has your understanding and relationship with manhood evolved? How has
Yeah.
that shifted for you?
Oh, it's changed so much. It's changed so
Has
much.
it?
Oh yeah, right. Even with the experience of my dad and uh, not sharing his emotions as much as I do, right? Again, not good, not bad, right? But just different, right? And then during that moment when I lost my dad, had my first son, it's actually when I started to like gravitate towards like men's groups. There's an organization called Next Gen Men, and it just really just stumbled on the page, and they were talking a lot about the things that I was kind of aligning with, right? Of like getting rid of old gender norms of like, oh, boys don't cry, or like, it's a sign of strength if you just suck it up.
And this was specifically prompted because you're like, uh-oh, I have like a human child that's a son.
But also just kind of processing my own emotions, my own
Mm,
journey, and then losing my dad. Like
right.
it all came at the same time, right? Universe is funny that way. In that moment, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then at the same time, I was like, how do I be part of this kind of direction that I was feeling towards? And then stumbled into like organizations like Next Gen Men that was all about trying to like pave the way for positive masculinity, getting rid of these old like
Mm,
thoughts. And then the more that I looked into their work and others, right, around patriarchy and then the way that we were so conditioned to view things, I was like, huh, this is really silly, right? This is really
yeah.
harmful, right? This is the reason why I didn't, or possibly my dad wasn't able to process his emotions, right? Because it was never
Mm-hmm.
safe for him to do it. He was in the jungle in the Vietnam War. You start crying in the jungle when someone's shooting at you, you probably, you're gonna die, right? So
Again, survival,
survival, right?
right?
So they don't talk about those emotions. They suppress it. It's all about survival, right? So
Yeah.
the more I looked into it, like you start to question everything of how you are and how you react, and then you get to choose. You get to consciously choose. I'm like, you know what? No, I don't really want to. I don't subscribe to this, right? So that was kind of my journey into like looking at fatherhood, masculinity, all that around that time. What's interesting is that like my cancer journey doesn't end at that point, right? This is 2018. My dad passed away. We have our son. It's 2020 or 2019. My wife and I are like, hey, let's try for another one, right? And I'm like, okay, sure, why not, right? And then a follow up ultrasound, an appointment reveals that like my remaining testicle has cancer again, right? So end of 2019, I get an ultrasound and say we found another tumor. It's on your remaining testicle. It needs to come out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's unfortunate, right? So now I have to
Yeah.
have that removed. So I'm dealing with that reality, also dealing with reality. Of course, if I get that removed, my the ability to have a child now.
Right. Right.
So it's just like it's this conversation of like myself or like a child, right? Obviously, my wife and myself are like, hey, you gotta take care of your health, but like I was dealing with that emotion, and then January of 2020, right before COVID, had my surgery to remove my remaining testicle. Before that, I went to a fertility clinic to take out some sperm. Like this is the last chance, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Who knows? Yes, it's about your survival and my health, but let's take these out and see.
Yeah.
Which wasn't like a big conversation piece. It was like, let's do that, but like, let's take care of your health kind of thing, right?
Okay.
So January 2020, get the second testicle taken out. COVID hits. I remember being in the hospital, seeing all these people coughing.
Yeah.
That was a fun year for a
Yeah.
lot of us. And then so now I have no testicles. I only have one adrenal gland, my left adrenal gland.
Right.
Now I'm on testosterone replacement and my oral medications and all that. In 2020, honestly, was a year. Obviously, there was a lot of mental like work I had to do. Right, a lot of therapy. So I'm a really big proponent on mental health and therapy. And then before going into surgery, like I had to kind of work into my mind. I'm like, I have no testicles anymore.
Yeah.
Does that make me a man still? Right?
Yeah.
What does manhood look like? Right? How do I show up? How do I feel internally? Right? How I feel
Yeah.
comfortable sharing this? Right? And it's funny enough, they when they got the second remove, you can get like prosthetics, right? You can get like fake testicles put in, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure, right? And she's like, do you want two or one? And I was like, I know I'm just gonna get one. Um,
Really? You were rocking with
one
one for a
for a
while,
while,
right?
right? So
Like
yeah,
you got
and
comfortable with the
I felt
one.
comfortable, and I also
Yeah.
wanted kind of like a little bit of a reminder. Right? So yeah, I went through therapy and had a lot of conversations about that mentally, internally, of like, because intuitively I knew, I'm like, of course I'm still a man, this positive masculinity, the way I want to show up, but you still need to work that through, right? Once it's a
Yeah.
reality, and that was fine, and it was just a process I had to go through, but that just further strengthened my desire to have these conversations around manhood and masculinity and so forth.
When did your relationship with therapy start? Was it around this time?
Well, it was before that. It was even
Okay.
like my first diagnosis in 20. It was kind
Yeah,
of like the first time I saw a therapist,
that's
right?
good.
Got
That's good.
hypnotized. Yeah, I've seen a bunch of
That's good.
therapists over time. I think everyone
Mm-hmm.
should have one. Around that time, um, yeah, I've had therapists throughout, right, which have been very, very helpful.
Yeah. You mentioned that the mental health part was like the hardest part through all of this, right? And I'm really
For sure.
glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that because I think that um, I don't know if you experience this, but people often ask questions about the things that they see,
Hmm.
right? The things that are more visible.
Mm-hmm.
The things that are less visible, the invisible things, the things
Yeah.
that are happening inside of us are, I think, tougher for people to talk about.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that that mental health part was, the biggest hurdle for you.
Yeah.
That brings me back to when your dad wanted to share with you. It's like, okay, things might get a little more visibly and more obviously different now. Like, I need to fill you in on what's happening.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get to a point where we are not waiting until things show up physically, right, on the surface to talk about these things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
So,
I think the mental health part is the biggest struggle and the least talked about, which then creates the biggest issue, I think, right? Because to your point, we're so conditioned to like some type of bias where like we can only whatever we see, we just assume that's the only thing that's wrong, right? Like we have a bias for things that we can only visibly see. Um,
mm-hmm.
but there's so much that goes underneath it, right?
Yeah,
And the two are so connected. If you are not mentally mm, not healthy, but in a way to process your cancer or whatever disease,
yeah.
it's gonna manifest more in your body, and there's a cycle towards it. So there's a
And
big,
other parts of your life,
oh,
your
totally,
relationships,
yeah,
like,
oh yeah,
you know,
yeah. It all starts with our mind. It all starts with our thoughts, and that was the biggest struggle slash learning for me was like that is probably more important than like hitting the gym or like eating a
yeah.
bunch of avocados or something, right? It's like you gotta really take care of your mental health. Whether it's therapy, whether it's any type of release and conversations,
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to focus on that.
I think experiencing this as a young adult, you were in your early 30s. I was in my late 20s. I think that, up until that point, most people's young lives, there isn't this like big atomic bomb that has
Yeah,
landed in their lives in order to think about therapy,
yeah,
right? Like our introduction to therapy happened to be cancer,
yeah.
right? I do wish that I had some tools growing up, right? Like, and again, this goes back to I don't hold any resentment or ill feelings towards like my parents because I
Yeah.
believe that parents no parent says like I'm gonna mess up my kid, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
every
Yeah,
parent is, and you're a parent, right? You're just doing the best that you can with what you have, and we
totally.
have to think about and remember what our parents
Yeah.
had, which was not much,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I do wish that I could have been a little bit more prepared for this. These conversations, we'd like for it to become more of the public discord. I'd love to hear from you because you experienced such a gendered
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah.
What are some things that you feel we could be doing a better job at including in the conversation when it comes to
Hmm.
testicular cancer? Like,
Hmm.
are there topics where you're just not quite satisfied with that we're not really kind of diving deep into?
Hmm.
You know?
One thing that I kind of keep top of mind, and I think we can all hear more of, is like giving men the permission to share more and to talk about things that we all want to share. Because from my experience, when I share my story, and I do it openly, and I do it on purpose, because um, I feel like it helps other people to talk about it as well. Like I've had many conversations where I share it, and people come up to me on the side, and they have, one, they have very tactical questions, like how did you know, what did you do,
Yeah.
right? Which I think is very helpful. And then two, also just like making those conversations so like flippant, right? Just like so casual,
Yeah.
right? Because and then
Yeah.
it should be, right? Why are we not having these conversations? Because
Yeah.
we're all human. We all have similar type of bodies. We have things that are going on, right? So I think the more we can have those conversations, the more likely that people will share it and not make it such a big deal, right? So
Yeah.
um, whether I share it publicly or in conversation, I think it then I like to feel at some point allows them to say, well, if Chris is saying this, then I can talk about this, right? Well, that's not as
Yep.
embarrassing as I thought it might be, or it might not, I might not be made fun of that I think of, right? So that's that mental aspect, right? People can get over that limiting mindset that I can't talk about this.
I use the cancer card all the time. If I feel like there's a stuckness in people where
Yep.
I can tell that something is on the tip of their tongue, but they're nervous, I'll share something vulnerable about myself. It also gives them some faith that, okay, if Chris is sharing this about him,
Yep.
he could probably take what I kind of want to share, right?
Yep.
He could probably hold space for this. Like, he's capable of
Yep.
understanding emotions. He's
Right.
not going to be weirded out if I share what I want to what I've been wanting to share,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And you make a good point. Some people are not able to hold that space, right? They're not there, right?
Exactly.
So they might take my conversation and like joke around about it, or like, dance around it because they're uncomfortable or they're unable to
Exactly.
process it, right? And to that point, I'm like, that's okay. That everyone's part of their own journey, and like we'll get to some point. But again, I think the more we talk about it, the more we share, it gives us opportunities for whenever they need to talk about it.
I think about the men in my life often, right? Because I
Yeah.
see the men in my life work so hard, so disciplined on like physical wellness, right? Physical fitness, going to the gym, really assessing their diet, and they're so committed.
Yeah.
And I know that if they're capable of that, they're also capable of applying that to their mental fitness as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like everyone has it in them,
Yeah.
right? But it's interesting because once the conversation moves towards something emotional, people forget their capabilities.
Yeah.
Right? It's all of a sudden like very very different.
Yeah.
You move from very open conversations around protein
Right,
powders
right, right.
and
Yeah.
reps,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
weights and everything
Yeah.
to like, oh, I'm uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like a whole bigger conversation around like people like you and I feel like are, and others, many other people in the world, I feel like we're like change makers slash like light workers in a way, meaning that, we have seen things and experienced things firsthand that will forever, of course, change how we see everything in the world, right? Everything
Forever.
from forever, right? Things about death, think about masculinity, fatherhood, and all that. And I think it takes that experience sometimes to realize what's really important and what's kind of driving certain behavior. So the example of like these protein powders, if people go to the gym, they're most likely doing that because of they're being conditioned, of course, from society, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how we're feeding that type of behavior, meaning that if you look this way, if you drink this protein powder, you're being successful in this world, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the work that I do with coaching and leadership, right, is kind of aligned because people start fixating on external drivers of success, and it can only go so far
Hmm.
until they realize that they actually need like inner drivers of success, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, people are conditioned to say, hey, go to the gym, eat well, that's going to be great. People will be attracted to you, you'll be deemed successful until it becomes not, right? Until you have an experience like we did, or go to a certain maturity level where you're like, you know what, that actually is not that important anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then they go inward to then think about their mental health or their mental maturity or emotional EQ. And then they start to
Mm-hmm.
shift over to like, you know what, that's actually sexier or that's actually more
Yeah. Oh yeah.
important, right? And
Yeah.
then they start caring less about the external validation and they care more about that internal validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what cancer has done, at least for me, and I'm sure for you as well, is that we fast track that process of like going through life externally. I'm successful. Actually, no, it's all about internally. You and I were like, we fast tracked that process to like when we had
Crash
cancer, I'm like,
course. Crash course.
forget about the external world. That does not matter at all. What's really important for us? What do we want to do? What's the impact we want to make? What's our mental health like? How do we deal with emotions? So that exactly is an immediate crash course, right? So I reflect all the time, like if I could go back in time, I wouldn't change a single thing about my story, right? Not a single thing, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
has given me the gift of like presence and consciousness and just being who I am in this journey that I would not have ever gotten. And imagine if I didn't go through this and was still looking for external validators of success, or like not really knowing how to deal with my emotions, knowing my value when I'm like 70, 80, 90, right? That would be worse than cancer, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I think so too. And I'm right with you. I really enjoy and appreciate where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I know that if it wasn't for everything that I've experienced, I would not be here,
Yeah.
right? And I am curious to know, how do you approach fatherhood? Two boys. It's so interesting to me, these three generations. Your father,
Totally.
who grew up with very different or some different value systems with his family, especially when it comes to communication, mental
Yep.
health, right? You, your generation, first generation, and then now these two young boys. How has that shaped your approach to fatherhood,
Yeah.
shaping their boyhood? And also, how do you toe the line with reminding them who they came from, including what grandpa went through, and not letting that harden them, not allowing that to like invalidate what they're experiencing?
Yeah. Yeah. To your fatherhood question. So after my cancer, my wife, Maggie was like, let's try this IVF thing, right? This really expensive, low probability thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we can try it. And I think they only took like 12 sperm. We have a running joke. And they're like, we got 12 sperm that we extracted. And I was like, 12? I was like, don't they come in like millions or something? They're like, she's like, we got 12. I was like,
A dozen, like an
it
egg
doesn't.
carton. Just
Yeah.
like,
I'm just
yeah,
like,
that's it.
these dozen decrepit little soldiers that came, right? We joke about it all the time. Yeah. And then the doctor, I remember, is like, we only need one. I was like, sure, I get that. And then my wife was a little bit older as well, right? So like, we had to face the potential of this not happening. But in short, 2021, like it was all her, right? So she went through all the IVF process. And if for those that have gone through it and want to know about it, it's like a lot of stabbing needles into her own abdomen with a lot of drugs to enforce, the best environment. And this was during COVID, right? So 2021, I couldn't even go with her to appointments and so forth. She had to process all
Crazy.
of these things. Lots of ups and downs, lots of like situations where we're like, oh, it's not gonna work. Oh, it was dangerous at sometimes, right? But short end of the story, we tried once and we were gifted with a second son, right? Through the IVF process. We just tried
Amazing.
one time, and all through my wife, Liam, it was born in December 30th, 2021. So we do have two boys. It's crazy, right?
Crazy.
Crazy. My fatherhood with them is like, I've always been very emotional versus my brother. Love my brother as well, but very different, right? I have no problem sharing my emotions. I'm a very touchy feely. My love language is physical touch, right? So when I'm with my boys, I'm always hugging, I'm always kissing them, kiss them in public and all that. And I do that intentionally for me, but also to show them that, hey, this is okay, right? Showing emotions and physical touch. I tell them I love them all the time. They tell me all the time. They're very vocal with
Yeah.
it. Lots of
Good.
hugs, lots of all that, right? Um, I'm also like big on, so I took paternity leave for both of my boys. Women do a lot in our world, and the least that we can do is take some time off during the time, right? And it was such a wonderful time, right? With our first son, I actually quit my job, so I was unemployed for a few months, but I got to spend time with my first son and my dad the last few months. Second son, similar, took paternity leave. And little things I think are important. Like I'm the cook in the family, so I cook breakfast, lunch, everyone's meals, and so forth. My wife does a whole bunch of other things. But I think part of that, I'm intentionally doing that to show them that, hey, men cook, men take time off, men show emotions, men take care of the household as well, right? It's not just these typical gender norms that we've grown up to experience. I show a lot of emotions with my wife in front of the boys, right? So no one's perfect, and I'm always working through my emotions, right? But I'm quick to acknowledge when, like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I yelled, right? Or I'm sorry, I got frustrated there. I think just talking about it and showing them that I'm definitely not perfect,
Yeah.
for sure. But having that open communication, I think, is helpful, right? And that's the example I want to set for them. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as being perfect. I'm gonna mess up, but we're gonna at least talk about it, right? We're gonna talk about our feelings. We're gonna talk about what went wrong, what we can do better going forward. And I think that is something that I try to hold dear to my heart.
It is so inspiring to see the difference in generations. Again, acknowledging that we're just first generation,
Yeah.
right? Like, and as I said earlier, we're all trying to do the best that we can with what we have. Our generation, we have been blessed with so much resource,
Yeah.
right? Like our parents had to experience things that are in most people's worst nightmares,
For
right?
sure.
Just to make it alive. The idea with every generation is like we're supposed to be equipping every generation with more and more tools so that they can be a little bit better than the
Yep.
last, right? Like
Yep.
your boys are going to be in a better position than you were,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And their kids are going to be in a better position. So, but
Yep.
it's just so wonderful to see that, again, obviously, like very grateful for what our parents equipped us with, but just to see such a transformation in just one generation.
Yeah, I think so too. And to your other question of like, how do I like validate what they're experiencing, but also kind of showcase what my dad went through. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And what we're made of, like where we come from,
Yeah.
right?
My wife and I joke about this all the time because there's like, for those that are parents, right, there's this idea of like gentle parenting out there. But back to when I grew up, there was none of that, right? That was like,
Yeah.
there's a stick here. It's going to make
Yeah.
contact
Yeah.
if you don't do X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah. A slipper, a
A
stick,
slipper,
whatever. Yeah.
in Chinese,
A
there's like
chopsticks.
tiu in Chinese, which is like a feather duster. Went through a lot of those. Obviously, also not good or bad, right? But like,
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, I think it's almost like a balance of both
Mm.
of those worlds, right? Because there's part of it honoring where we came from, and then there's
Yeah.
honoring what they're experiencing. Call it gentle parenting, call it whatever, yeah, how we
Yeah.
approach things, right? I'm finding that I'm balancing both. In some situations, one's more helpful than others, right? But I think it's important, and two, it just shows them where they kind of came from as well. Sometimes this is okay, sometimes not so much, right? So again, we're like you said, just doing the best that I can, right?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's not, and when I say transformation, I don't necessarily mean like throwing everything out that we've learned, like everything that we grew up with is complete garbage. I
Yeah.
think it's more of an evolution,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Great word.
You know, we turned out okay. We're decent people,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So there were some things there's a lot of things that our parents I think did right, and I'm so grateful for how they handled things. And also it's an and,
Yeah.
right? And also we have some additional resources. We know more. We know some things
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
right? That perhaps our parents didn't,
For sure. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think the underlying message, underlying theme, like there's always good they can get from anything, right? From any like practice or approach and so forth, right? You just got to be aware, I think, taking what was good and what was not, right?
Yeah. Remind me how old your sons are?
They are this year they're 8. Caden is 8, and Liam will be turning 4 in 13 days.
What do they know and how much do they know about
Oh
your
yeah,
cancer experience
yeah,
and grandpa's?
yep. They know a lot. I share openly, right? Caden, he looks at my scars all the time. He talks about cancer, bad cells, right? Which relates well to like I relate to obviously the food that we eat, but also just like emotions and so forth.
Yeah.
My father smoked, so he knows not to smoke, right? We talk about death a lot as well, right? We are spiritual by nature, not specific to a religion, but we talk about angels and spirits and souls and so forth, right? In a non-denomination type of way. They
Yeah.
understand, they take it from their perspective and so forth, right? I tell them my dad, their yaya is always around, right? Floating around and so forth. Sometimes there's like a weird noise or whatever. And I was like, what was that? And he's like, oh, it's probably your dad.
Yeah.
Probably dad playing tricks and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, probably. Right. So
I love it. You're not communicating it in a way that's not like a scary thing,
no.
right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of us were scared of it because how it was framed, not having it be part of normal
Yeah.
conversations, everyday conversations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Not equipping them, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. And that's just part of making the conversations just very natural, giving permission to talk about it, right? It's not this big scary thing, right? And then I think the
Yeah.
worst off is you make it a big scary thing, don't explain why it's a big scary thing. So now they think there's just a big scary thing. And then they
Yeah.
just go through life, right? And
And that probably equates to a lot of anxiety.
yeah,
Well, I'm so glad that they have you as dad.
I'm the lucky one.
Life is a miracle, hey? Like
Yeah.
12,
12.
12.
Just 12. I'm like, 12? 12 million? I know.
Are
12.
you sure there's not a zero or a
Yeah.
couple zeros added to that?
And I'm like, and I know they're the 12 best ones, so I don't know. They're not decrepit. Right. So,
So funny. Well, one found its way. I'd love your help on these questions. Some food for thought.
Love it.
I'll also share this, that whenever I get questions in from men, I'm so happy. I'm thrilled. I'm
Yeah.
thrilled
Good.
because it doesn't happen
It doesn't
often,
happen
to be
often.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. That's awesome.
Even just the courage it takes to submit a question, I think is amazing.
Oh,
So the first question actually is from a woman,
okay.
but it's about her male friend. Her name's Lillian.
Okay.
She's from Vancouver, so
Cool.
in your hood. She's 29 years old, and she shares that there's this friend that she has years of a relationship with. They meet up to work out, they have their regular schedule, but she learned from him, he told her, that he was recently diagnosed with testicular cancer. From what she shared, it's a pretty advanced stage.
Mm.
She doesn't know all the details, but it's a pretty advanced stage.
Yeah.
And she hasn't seen him at the gym or in their neighborhood in a while. She's texted him a couple times, left him some WhatsApp voice notes to check in, and he's just gone radio silence.
Yeah.
Nothing on any socials. None of their fellow workout buddies have heard from him, and understandably, she's concerned and worried. She's wondering if there's anything else she should do. She's not sure if it's insensitive to keep checking in, but he's
Yeah.
just gone quiet. And she also shared that he lives on his own and his family is not in the Vancouver area. She's concerned because his people were his gym people.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's tough. I can
That
imagine.
is tough.
I can imagine how she feels, and kudos for her for wanting to connect and support. Obviously, a really good friend.
Yeah.
Not knowing him, right? I could imagine a couple of things that he's going through, right? Either he's going through some treatment and he's receiving some news that's pretty tough, right? He's either going through treatment or going through a direction which can be very tough news for him, right? And with that, there's a couple of things. There's that physical component of whatever he may be going through, but there's also that mental component that he might be going through as well. And there's also, there's a tendency for us to always want to be there for people, right? To check in and so forth. And you might relate to this as well. When I was going through this as well, there needs to be time and space for us to process our own things. That when there's also the added communication of others wanting to hear back from us or to communicate back, sometimes, depending if we haven't dealt with what we need to deal with, sometimes that feels more overwhelming than helpful, right?
Such a good point.
Right. So you think about all these unread emails, right? This idea, right? If you're going through this experience, you're trying to go through your own processing, and then you have all these messages that that you want to get back to, and that they care, and that they're just checking in. If I'm not in a place to be able to handle that feels, and I'll use this word lightly, right? That feels like a little bit of a burden because now I feel like I got to get back to you.
Right.
And when I get back to you with whatever I communicate, the other thought process is am I now trying to console you so you don't feel worried? How much should I share? Yeah, how much do you want to know? And then also the thought process is if I do share something, what will come back after that as a response?
Right.
So will that start, creating a snowball effect of of a sharing, of a communication that I might not be ready for, right? Or I might have had times 20 with other people, and it's really exhausting.
It's a lot. Did you experience that?
For sure. I couldn't get back to people. And then there's this added component. So every person that got to me, there's different dynamics, right? It's a lot. I think there's a mental load to that, right? Because you're trying to process yourself, and then now you're also having to think about how do I balance their emotions, right?
Yeah.
And that's just extra load that if we're unable to handle, it shows up as I'm not going to get back to you, right? It shows up as ghosting because I can't deal with this right now.
Yeah.
Because now it becomes more about you versus me, right? As tough as that is to hear, that's what sometimes on this side it feels like, right? Is it because you're more curious to know, or do you really care? Well, obviously they care, but are you asking based on your curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And me answering back, is it satisfying your curiosity?
So Lillian, it's worth having this honest conversation with yourself, right? Lillian, if your intention is I just want to let him know that I'm here.
Yeah.
That's great. He has your message. You can even just let him know that. I just want to let you know that
Yes.
I'm here and just
Yep.
leave it there, right?
That's a great point. Exactly. Maybe just name it out, right? And just say, hey, I haven't heard from you. I can imagine you're going through a lot. I don't need anything from you. I don't even need
Yeah.
a response.
Yeah.
I just want you to know I'm here. You reach out anytime, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like simple things like dropping things off, right? Or making it very apparent that you don't need anything from them. Will then give them comfort of like, okay, they're actually saying they don't need a reply. They don't need anything from me. They're gonna feel supported, and when they do feel that they can respond, they have that avenue to respond, right?
Yeah, if they want to,
If they
right?
want.
Again, if it's not about us,
Yeah.
right? Like if we've checked in with ourselves and are aligned that like it's really not about us. Now that I'm reflecting back, I can think of gestures like that were so meaningful to me that I
Yeah.
still that to be honest, 10 years later I haven't gotten back to,
Yeah.
right? Like, people that might be on the peripheral of my network where
Yeah.
they just checked in at that time, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
it's a lot to
A lot.
process. Like at that moment, I'm still understanding what the hell is happening to me, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't have any surplus of energy to
Exactly.
communicate, to even think about
Yeah.
communicating. So I did receive some of those messages like, hey,
Yeah.
I know you haven't heard from me for like ever. I'm just sending best wishes and
Yeah.
outright saying do not feel the need to respond to this.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
put stuff in front of your doorstep,
Yeah.
right? Like I've handled groceries for the week or whatever.
Yeah.
Things that don't
Perfect.
require like a confrontation,
Yes.
because
Exactly.
I might not have confronted it with myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. Complete. I think that
You
honest
know,
conversation
yeah.
can go a long way, I think.
Just to address it right off the bat,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
taking care of it and being like, nope,
Yeah.
don't need you to respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope that's helpful, Lillian. Definitely worth like checking in with yourself, making sure that our actions really like center your friend.
Yeah.
I hope everything's gonna be okay with him.
Hope so too.
Obviously, we don't know the details of his diagnosis,
Yeah.
but Chris knows some things about it, and as he shared, it's not an easy experience.
And it guess goes without saying for anyone that if anyone wants to reach out and talk about these things, like, yeah, you can anytime.
We got a question from Neeraj. He's from my area now, Toronto.
Really?
He's 37 and he says, this might sound weird, but he says that things are not feeling the same with his friends ever since, and he had a testicular cancer diagnosis as well, and surgery. He misses regularly hanging out with them, but he feels like there's just a bit of a disconnect. Their conversations aren't flowing the same way, and he's feeling a disconnect with the people that he once had really strong friendships with and camaraderie. It's hard because he's not really seeing anyone now. Like he doesn't really have like a social circle right now. What are your thoughts on this? And can you relate to this? Did it shift some of your friendship dynamics?
I think there's like a tiptoeing effect when you go through an experience like this, or when I went through this experience, and then you reemerge right back into the wild, right back into whatever social circles.
Yeah.
I was definitely aware of like, just different looks, different people are tiptoeing around certain ideas.
Talking to you differently?
Like they just seem a little more sensitive or guarded to not say the wrong
Oh.
thing, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so I definitely kind of experienced that in the beginning. I think what it boiled down to is that they were caring about what was happening, what happened to me, and they were sensitive and they're unsure how to approach this new dynamic, right? So whether for them it changed or not, right? I feel like they might have kind of are starting to figure out how to approach this new social dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And I don't really know if I intentionally kind of worked on this, but like I think for my nature, like same thing. Like I talk about it very openly. I talk about my experience very openly. I assume that things are back to normal, and maybe in a way, I show people that hey, we can continue these conversations as is.
Yeah.
But I did catch, and I still catch this today when people say things like you. I'm sure catch it all the time when people use the word cancer very like flippantly, right? Or like
Yeah.
they'll do something and they're working on something. It's like, well, it's not like we're curing cancer or something, right? Or like, Or my
Yeah.
favorite is when I'm running with some guys that are very like, very like old school masculinity. They're like, hey, don't you have any balls, right? Right? Like, and I joke all the time. I was like, and actually, I don't. Right? Or like they say like really like cliche things, get backchecked. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's okay, right? It's part of
Yep.
our
Yep.
culture and our words, right? But I love those
Yep.
moments because it causes people to change and reframe things, right? Because
Yeah.
because they always said those things, right? But not to make them feel bad about it, but just like a level of consciousness around it, right?
For Neeraj, it doesn't sound like him
Mm.
and his friends are very communicative about
Yeah,
like things that are happening.
yeah,
So how do you address like the elephant in the room,
yeah, yeah,
right? When things are feeling kind of like awkward, like
yeah.
not the same. And I guess the reality is that like things aren't the same.
It depends on how good friends they are, and then
Mm.
if you can have an open and honest conversation, right? So have the conversation of like, hey folks, I'm noticing actually the way we talk, it's been kind of different, and it's really actually impacted me because I feel disconnected, I feel a little bit alone, I feel like we had such a great connection as friends, and ever since
Yeah.
this point in time, I've noticed this. I'm curious, like, have you noticed this, or has something changed? Because what I would like is for us to continue our friendship, our social activities the way it was before. So if there's
Yeah.
something that we need to talk about, or something that you're curious about in terms of what I went through and how that might impact our friendship, like let's talk about it because I value your friendship. I value our time together. I would love for this to continue as it was before. It'll kind of create that space to like share, right? And they might come back and say something, right? Or this is the reason why, or they might be like, I didn't even know that. I'm sorry, right? Maybe it was something else, right? So
Yeah.
having that courage to bring it up might be helpful.
Yeah, and to your point, like what you brought up earlier with your experience with your friends when people were kind of like tiptoey, the intention was good. It's just because they
Yeah.
weren't sure,
Yeah.
right? Like they weren't sure where you were at,
Yes.
right? Like they didn't want to be insensitive. I think with your suggestion, what I like about that is the way that you phrase things. There weren't any assumptions being made in there. It
Hmm.
was just like curiosity,
Curiosity.
right? You're
Yeah.
expressing, and actually, Nirav says he actually wrote, "I miss them." He's like, "I."
Yeah.
So even just sharing that, like, "Hey, I miss you guys,"
Yeah.
right? And not making any assumptions, just "I
Yep.
miss you," and like, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I think naming it and just sharing what you are experiencing, like in coaching, there's this thing called an experience cube, and I just thought about that now. It might be helpful for to in the process, right? There's four quadrants. It's like kind of naming like how you feel, like, hey, I feel this way, right? What you observed, right? So I observed that we don't hang out anymore, right?
Yeah,
And that we're disconnected. And then how it relates to I feel lonely, I feel sad, I miss you, right? And the other quadrant is like thoughts, right? Right? I observe this, I feel this way, and I'm thinking that there's something off with us, or I'm thinking that there's something that's left unsaid.
yeah,
And then the last quadrant is like, what's the want, right? What's the want for
mm,
me? Like, I would like us to hang out again, right?
yeah,
And, be together, right? So
yeah,
kind of just going through those four experience cube could be helpful for him to process, but just to articulate,
yeah.
from his standpoint.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Neeraj, I hope that helps. And you know what? This could be like the very start of learning these healthy relationship skills, right? We're not all born with some of these skills, right? Everyone has their own learning journey. Good luck with that, and I hope that you see your friend soon. I really hope you see your friend soon. Okay, we have a question from Christoph, wrote in from Houston, Texas. And he experienced colon cancer, and he's having a hard time talking about intimacy with his partner. And he doesn't really know how to bring it up without killing the mood. And he also shares that he feels this kind of disconnection with his own body. There's been
Yeah.
lots of surgical procedures happening down there. So he doesn't feel his relationship with his own body feels a little bit off.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think therapy would be very helpful, right? And that was helpful for me, right? So there's a couple of things. So therapy, when I went, lost the first testicle and then the second one, so a lot of therapy for me to process this, right? Like, what is masculinity? Does that make me a man? How does that impact me? Talk about
Yeah.
intimacy with my therapist as well. How we approach
Yeah.
it. And that gave me the tools. My wife and I also have seen couples therapy as
Oh,
well
good.
over the years,
Okay.
right? For a variety of reasons, right?
Yeah.
So, that was helpful for us, arming me with the tools to have those conversations, because you're having these thoughts about intimacy. Good chance of that she's probably having, or your partner's having these same thoughts, right? Or different concerns, right?
Christoph mentioned that they've been married for some time. We can feel very comfortable talking about different things, right? Like different things that happen in life. There's this vulnerability, but when it comes to intimacy, all of a sudden, a very difficult thing to go there. Did you talk to an intimacy therapist or?
Yeah, it wasn't specifically around intimacy,
Yeah,
but I think it helped us just get us prepared for those conversations. Maybe, yeah, a specific intimacy therapist would be helpful. But the other interesting part of it is that I found that as you grow older, like the word intimacy changes as well, right? Right? In the, away from the traditional sense of like, physical intimacy to other areas,
right,
especially when you're going
right.
through something as like, colon cancer, something dramatic as a big event, it changes
Yeah.
a little bit, right? So, and a lot of times for the better, right? So yeah, like I think having open, honest conversations, because they're probably thinking the same thing. And if you're unable to do that, or you don't feel ready, then find the tools available. It just starts with like just that first conversation, right?
It's so interesting to me that there's so much connected to masculinity and your organs down there, right? And
Yep.
sexual intimacy. I'm not a
Yeah.
male, but like I'm trying to imagine how much pressure comes with that.
Yeah.
I can only imagine,
Yep.
right? I don't have the experience, but
Yep.
yeah, I'm sure it's very impactful.
Which then goes back to the whole like society, right? Because yeah, I guess men feel a lot of pressure, and the only reason why we felt the pressure is because society has told us that we should have this pressure, right? To be
Yeah.
whatever, right? The breadwinner, the strong physically and mentally, right? And like
Like even how like sex looks like.
even how and like again through this experience, like you just question everything. And I think that's why I go back to the whole mental aspect and the mindsets and the limiting. Once we like let go of all that, I call it junk, right? Once we let go of that junk, you're actually more free to actually have these conversations or look at approaches in life.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't give myself so much pressure in this, or like, you know, uh, you challenge all these different norms, and again, only from myself and like you, only going through cancer really opened that up, right? That exposed these hidden pressures that have dictated our lives for so long to like, actually, I don't really believe that anymore, right? And that's
Yeah.
more freeing than anything, I think.
I think so too. I can relate to that. It's very freeing. I feel like I can get more creative. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's almost as if you've been introduced to a whole new set of tools,
Yeah.
right? It's like we're socialized to think that we have these like very specific tools,
Yeah.
but then when you knock down those walls, you're like, "Whoa, but I have all of this."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
All of this to play with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And create with, right? Okay, we have a question from Alexander. This is a family based one. He's 34. He's from San Jose, California. He asks, "How do I stay strong and confident for my family, especially my young kids?" He has 3 kids, 2 girls, 1 boy. When I'm feeling like shaky and scared myself,
Yeah.
how do I let my kids see vulnerability without passing fear and anxiety onto them? I don't want them to have to think about what dad is going through when they should be focusing on homework, playing with their friends, etc.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a balancing act between all of that, because you don't want to hide everything from your kids, right? But you also want to show them that whatever you're feeling is real, and then you're actually showing them you work through it. I think there's like a check or like a signal at some point where you have to like ask yourself, am I sharing because I want them to learn through that vulnerability experience,
Mm-hmm.
or now is it getting too far where it's like, okay, I'm kind of like dumping on my kids, or like that fear and
Mm.
anxiety has gone too far along the way. That's not helpful. I think it's only for him to understand and maybe process internally. Maybe it's preparing for conversations and getting like a check internally first.
Because if it's too raw, it hasn't gone through a filter yet,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like
Right. Yeah.
it just goes straight to your kids,
Yeah.
and
You haven't processed it
processed it.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I use journaling a lot, right? That self-reflection, that time and space, right? To really get your thoughts down from your head onto paper or digitally, whatever, right? And that's helped me process what I'm going through, right? Because you write it down and then you read what you wrote down, then you're able to kind of like, separate yourself as the observer of your thoughts and not be attached to like you are your thoughts, right?
Right.
And then through that, it's like, okay, right? What's your intent here? Is your intent to share so they can see vulnerability, so they can see you going through this? Or is your intent to like, dump on them, right? Emotionally, right? Or not, it might
Yeah.
not be your intent, but like a potential outcome, right? So just having that frame and then go, okay, if my intent is this, then what do I need to do? What do I need to prepare myself in order to have the proper intent of sharing, right? What's the best situation? Is it a conversation?
Yeah.
When is it? What's the environment like, right? Getting that very specific so that you're sharing with that proper intent.
He's in the middle of it. Like he's in the thick of it. He shared that it's very fresh. Did you need a bit of like a bit of time to process it before sharing it? Because Alexander shares that he's feeling kind of shaky, and because he's in the thick of it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just wondering
Yeah.
like, should he be sharing it in real time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like right after he comes back from the appointment,
Mm.
they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Dad, how was it?" It's like I'm
Yeah.
just trying. Like he
Yeah. Yeah.
hasn't,
Yeah.
you know.
I would, everyone's different, but I would, when you say that to me, I would side with ensuring that you are in a good place first before sharing with your kids, because there's an innocence with their kids, right? That we want to protect, I feel like sometimes. Not protect like the whole story, not protecting the vulnerability and the hard times, but just packaging it enough where a kid can process it appropriately, right? Because
Yeah.
we talk about with our kids, right? 8 and 4, there's some things that we share, and I share openly, and then my wife sometimes, and rightly so, she's like, they don't need to hear it that way in that tone right now, right?
Yeah.
So there's a balancing act between telling them the truth, but then also not robbing them of their innocence in a way, right? Too early,
Yeah.
right? For him, if he's shaky, and that's clue to me that you need your time to process first,
Not
right?
the
To
right
make sure
time.
you're grounded, right? And then when you feel in a good place, then you can kind of share in a way that it feels comfortable.
Yeah, and some of those tools that you mentioned, like journaling,
Journaling, therapy,
therapy,
yeah,
right? Talking it out with a
yeah,
friend, right?
meditation, right? Anytime you can really sit with yourself. Meditation was a big practice of mine, continues to be,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, take care of yourself first. Like if this happened to your kids, right? And I do this in coaching a lot, right? Anytime someone has a question like this, I'm like, well, what would you want your kids to do, right? Imagine your kids went through this and they had this
Yeah.
question and sharing their news with their kids, right? What would you tell them? I would imagine he would probably say something similar of like, hey, stay grounded, be comfortable, share what you can, right? And be
Yeah.
in a good place before you do.
Yeah, all his three kids are under 10, so they're
Yeah,
definitely at that age where it's like, peak developmental years, right? Where
yeah,
they're really like soaking everything in, really observing what your parents are going through, observing
yep,
how they're experiencing life,
yep,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's tough,
So it is
but
tough.
I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure he's doing the best he can. And they're gonna love you regardless, right? They're gonna be there to support you either way, right? So
I honestly think even just asking this question tells me so much about Alexander,
hmm
right? All these people
yeah,
that wrote in, Lillian,
yeah,
Neeraj, Christoph, Alexander, even just asking this question
yeah,
tells me a lot about you,
yeah.
right? To check in with yourself of how you're feeling. Okay, I'm going to type this question out and ask. Okay, before I let you go, Chris,
Mm.
I wanted to ask if there's anything that we didn't talk about today that you want to bring
Mm.
up, address.
Yeah, just thought of it right now, but I thought about it over the years. But I think with cancer, we always talk about like the people that are going through the cancer, but I don't think there's enough attention to like the caregivers,
Hmm.
the people around our lives and the role that they play. Like, so I think about my wife a lot, and I
Hmm.
think about even me as a caregiver to my dad,
Right.
because all the attention is usually given to the person that has cancer, and the caregiver, the one closest to that person, is usually pushed off to the side, right? And that can have a lot of impacts, I think, right? Because I think back on my wife and what she went through, like everyone, all the
Yeah.
attention was on me. For her, I can imagine she's going through tons of emotions, right? She's newly
Yeah.
engaged. What about her life? What about her mental health? What about how she's trying to keep the house in operation? What does she tell her son and so forth? But there's not a lot of attention or checking in with the caregivers.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like the lost souls, right? In these journeys. And, when I reflect back and for those that are going through this, yes, the person going through it, of course,
Of
but
course.
just as important, I think, to check in with the caregivers and how they're dealing with it, because sometimes they don't have permission to talk about their feelings and what they're going through. That's has heavy impacts on them. And I think we just need to create that space for them.
It sounds like you and your wife have had some conversations about this. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, now, right? In the
Yeah.
moment, right? Not so much because you're,
Yeah.
you're in it, right? Could have done a better job for sure.
Yeah.
As I reflect back, right? Those are some of the things that really pop up, right? That could be better. We've
Yeah.
had conversations for sure, but um, you know, um, I hope others that go through this, they keep that in mind.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that insight. And I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with me
Yeah, of
today.
course, this was fun.
Yeah.
Fun to reflect and hopefully to spark some conversations and some of the things that we talked about can help other people along on their journeys.
Exactly. I mean, the statistics are 2 in 5 of us. Folks being able to hear from folks like us is
Yeah.
important. I was just doing some Chinese media, and I spoke about how one of the many inspirations for my podcast is that I never saw East Asian people
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? In support networks, I was the only East Asian woman, and I hope that conversations like this allow for others to know that we know what happens in our communities. Cancer is not discriminatory, but that it's okay to
Yeah.
talk about it,
Yeah.
right? To develop these skills to feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I love that. And
yeah,
this conversation is helpful, I think, for people like us and others, right? So I love all this.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's me again. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Chris and I. And hey, before you go, I would love to know, what did you resonate with? And what would you like to hear more of? Go ahead and let us know in the comments. And if you'd be so kind, leave us a rating. It helps us out tremendously. I'll catch you on the next episode of Candidly with Carolyn. See ya.